me wind the clock back a little bit, all the way back to 2015. A classic year, almost a decade ago now. But yeah, way back in 2015, we saw the release of what would become one of the defining franchises of Disney Channel of the 2010s. And that was, of course, The Descendants. Which, well, it's a strange premise, really. What if all the Disney stories all happened at the same time, and then they created a new magical kingdom, and they also had a new strange elective monarchy, with everyone seemingly becoming American with modern American customs, whilst also having a crazy plot where all the villains have been chucked into an inescapable open-air prison, with their children similarly punished for their parents' crimes. Yeesh, pretty dark, isn't it? Isn't this meant to be a kids' franchise? Yikes. And yeah, on the surface, it's an idea that should get you laughed out of the pitch meeting.
People are gonna love it if you say so.
I think this kind of thing would have worked much better in a cartoon context, or as a comedy, or even as something a bit more serious. I mean, has anybody heard of Fables before? But yeah, they ended up going through with this, and I don't know, I don't think you can really argue it's exceptionally well made. But at the same time, I think that budget vibe played into its success. Yeah, it's goofy looking, it's low budget, and at times the script doesn't make all that much sense. And hell, the songs can even be a bit ridiculous, but it's all so awesome. No! This movie's dank in the most glorious ways, and its popularity exploded. And from this was spawned a pretty massive fandom, and most importantly, an abundance of spin-offs and sequels. From here, we got an animated spin-off series, which sort of bridges the gap between the first and second films. We got a sequel film, which, yeah, for me, this is where it started to have some diminishing returns, at least in terms of its quality and plot, but in terms of popularity, it just kept getting bigger and bigger. So I think my opinion on their quality doesn't really matter all that much. They then had another film after that wrapped up the franchise for the most part. They also had 3 short films, 2 prequel animated spin-offs, a TV special, a couple of novels, and lots of merch sold. And so yeah, it really is one of those massively popular Disney franchises, no doubt about it. But it seemed like it was well and truly done after the 3rd movie. Usually this is how it goes after all. The other massive Disney Channel film franchise that really comes to mind for me when I try to think of one is High School Musical, and that went for 3 films too. The trilogy is a tried and tested method, and it felt like even if there were any legs left in the franchise, any interest in it at all, it was well and truly scuppered by the fact that one of the 4 leads, well, he died back in 2019, not long before the release of the 3rd movie. Jesus, I remember that day. How has it already been almost 5 years? So sad, poor kid. But yeah, it's been ages since then. So any possible continuation that links in with the original movies, it died on the vine. It just wouldn't be the same in my opinion. It'd be like if they legit went ahead with an actual Friends reunion episode, not just the fun special talk segment they all did together, but rather a proper scripted episode. Imagine if they did that and made it now, but after Matthew Perry had died. That would be pretty weird, wouldn't it? Wouldn't feel right, so I figured we'll never see this franchise again. But hey, sometimes that's for the best. Not everything needs a reboot. Not everything needs to last forever. Sometimes it's okay to let things go, to constrain that to history and go in a new creative direction. And yeah, for a long while I figured that was that. No chance of something more, and I stopped paying attention as a result. Until recently, as if out of nowhere, I saw the news that they're making more of these things. This time for a Disney Plus release. Guess they want to bulk up their catalogue for streaming. And yeah, I don't know how I feel about this, to be honest, so I figured, okay, I'll wait and see, I'll take a look into things as well. So I did, and apparently we're getting 2 of these movies, and apparently this has been known since like 2021, so I guess I am very well behind the times. Guess it slipped under my radar. And the first of these, which was originally announced under the working name of Descendants, the Pocket Watch, but now known as Descendants, the Rise of Red, is due to release on Disney Plus. And it's releasing at some point in summer 2024 apparently, which is rather vague, especially as we're rapidly approaching that time frame, but sure, why not? But yeah, I guess this brings me to the crux of things. Does anybody else think this is going to end up being pretty bad? Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to act completely delusional and say that I think it's going to be a failure. I don't really think it possibly can be. Ultimately, the metric that matters most to Disney is the viewership. And on Disney Channel, these things were pulling monster ratings. They were often the highest rated thing on the channel for that year. And so when this thing, with its name brand value, arrives on a service, Disney Plus, that has far more accessibility than the cable channel, you can probably connect the dots and expect that it is going to explode. It is going to do very, very well, simply based on the name value of the franchise, if nothing else. However, whilst the first one might be popular, I do think this is where we're going to start to see a downturn in the popularity of the franchise. Because the first 3 installments in the trilogy, aside from pulling in monster ratings and being the highest rated stuff on Disney Channel every year they released, they also actually had critical success as well. And this kind of does shock me. They're definitely the types of films I'd expect would be popular with the masses, panned by the critics. But nope, to Rotten Tomatoes we go. The first has a 90% critical score. 90! Yikes! And a 66% audience score. The second one got 71% critical, 69 a 69% audience score. And then the third one, that got a 78% and a 65%. So across the board, well liked by the majority. But for me, I think a lot of that comes from, well, the cast. The cast of characters is the draw, is what was popular. The first film, well, the draw was the new concept and seeing all the Disney characters brought to life. But after that, people got really attached to these characters and the cast. And of course, that ongoing storyline. But the problem with this one, Descendants, well, it's pretty much Descendants 4, but you can't really market it that way because the OG 4 are not in it, so it's technically a spin-off, but whatever. Now, obviously, one of the actors is dead, so I doubt he's coming back. And it would be very icky to recast him. I don't think anyone would like that. And my god, if they tried to AI him back, I think people would storm Disney Studios. So it's very much for the best that they've moved on, but at the same time, almost none of the original cast at all are making their returns. Not Mal, not Evie, not Jay. You know, that's the big three, and not Ben either. He'd make up the big five. And he's supposed to be the king, isn't he? And so yeah, already it's a no from me, dog. Like, once again, the storylines for these films, they're pretty basic and they're not really that good. The draw is the characters, the dynamics that form over the years. That's what I cared about at the very least. And so now, you have a pretty much all new cast with a couple returning names, the fairy godmother, but who cares? And Uma, like, is she meant to be a big deal? To me, she's completely forgettable. She's not on the same level as the other characters.
Apparently, it's a big deal.
I think many people agree with that. And ultimately, I think that's the problem with spin-offs. People often get really attached to the OG characters. That's who they wanted to see. And so they're not going to give it a chance. And so you lose the thing that makes the franchise special, that connection to the characters, and you're just left with a kind of lame teen film. And then on top of that, you're going to have comparisons made, deciding who's the better characters. And often, the new content, whether rightly or wrongly, is going to come off worse in that comparison because there's no nostalgia attached to it. And then you couple it with a plot like this. Direct from the press release blurb this is. Red, the daughter of the Queen of Hearts, and Chloe, the daughter of Cinderella, team up to travel in time with the White Rabbit's pocket watch and prevent a catastrophic coup on Auradon. So you have a fresh cast that almost will certainly not measure up to the OG, even if they are good at acting. But on top of that, our story is involving a very tired, overused, and difficult to pull off trope in time travel. Is that the way to go? I don't think so. I just don't think this is going to be good. I think it's going to end up looking terrible compared to the OG trilogy. You know, I'm happy to be wrong, but if I'm right, man, you're going to be exposed on the biggest stage that Disney has to offer outside a theatrical release. And it'll be very embarrassing. Rest in peace. And so yeah, not much else to say other than that. These have just been my opinions, and now that you hear yours. What do you think of a fourth Descendants film? Do you think it's a bad idea? You agree with me on that? Maybe disagree. I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.